Over the weekend, we learnt about the passing of former Liverpool women's manager Matt Beard at the age of 47. Matt was recognised as a true champion of women's football and had been seen as virtually instrumental in the growth of the women's game. He led Liverpool to back-to-back WSL titles in 2013 and 2014. He actually returned for a second spell in 2021, but he left in February this year. Liverpool women's match with Aston Villa was postponed yesterday following the announcement of Matt's death. Liverpool paid tribute to a man they described as an extremely committed and successful manager. The Telegraph's women's football reporter Kathryn Batte. Kathryn has joined us on this show on a number of occasions. Kathryn, good afternoon to you. Thanks for joining us. Simon and Danny both with me. You'd written in the past various articles about this man, Matt Beard, and presumably you had interviewed him, Kathryn, as well. This is sad news, isn't it? The fellow was just 47 years of age.
Yeah, it's really, really sad. And I think you can see from the tributes that not just his former players, but players that didn't even work under him, that came up against him, how heartfelt they were, just how much, how well loved he was by everyone in the women's game. I mean, he achieved so much. He won a lot of trophies, but I think what people remember him for is just how kind and generous he was with his time. He was really, really warm, always up for a laugh and a joke with you after a game, regardless of the result, and really welcoming to the media. So, it's an immeasurable loss for the women's game, and just a really, really sad 48 hours.
I mean, nobody can argue for 1 second, Kathryn, about his contribution to women's football. He had previous spells at Millwall Lionesses, Chelsea, West Ham, National Women's Soccer League side Boston Breakers, as well as an interim period in charge of Bristol City. I mean, talk about commitment.
Matt was someone who worked in women's football when there was no money in the game, and when it wasn't fashionable or cool to work in women's football, he really championed it. And I think that sometimes is overlooked, his contribution to the game as a whole. And it was because he just loved football. He was really, really passionate. He didn't earn a lot of money when he was working in women's football in the early days, but he was so committed to it, and he worked his way up from the bottom of the pyramid all the way to the top, and won trophies. And he's the most successful Liverpool women's manager in their history, and he'll be remembered for what he did for the women's game, but also, again, as I say, just for who he was as a person, and the warm and loving character that he was.
Kathryn, he might have contributed a lot to the women's game. He achieved a lot as well, though, didn't he?
He did, those 2 titles for Liverpool in 2013 and 2014, it really was kind of, he made history with them. And, Liverpool had never won anything in the women's game before that. They made a statement by kind of going professional and putting a bit of money into the team. But, Matt held off competition from Man City, who were investing a lot at the time, Chelsea. And, the second title, I think they went into the final day in 3rd place, and they ended up winning the title in a really dramatic, probably one of the best final days of the WSL has ever seen, and that's probably one of the most memorable title wins in the competition's history. But also getting Liverpool back into the WSL when he went back for that second spell. They'd been in the Championship for a couple of years, really struggling. He got them back into the top flight, finished 4th in his in a couple of years' time as well, and he achieved so much there. And as I say, he's the most successful manager that they've ever had, but he also had a great impact at other clubs as well. I mean, we saw Casey Stoney say how much he did for Chelsea when they had no money there, and how much he took them up to another level before Emma Hayes went in after him. So he's had success wherever he's been, and he leaves a lasting legacy on the women's game.
And how was he to deal with in your dealings with him?
As I say, he was always up for a laugh and a joke. I went to interview him at Melwood a couple of years ago, and he invited me to eat with him in the Liverpool canteen. And not many managers would do that. He took great pleasure in showing me his fantasy TV and the dedicated crime channels. He loved watching his crime TV shows. So, and he was the only manager that ever invited the other WSL managers for a drink after the game. It's not really the done thing now, but Jonas Eidevall said he was a connecting force, Matt Beard, in his fridge. So. He was always up for a drink and a laugh.
I mean, from what Kathryn's description of him is like, both during a game, after a game, before a game, this fellow looked after a lot of people, and he was a bit different, Danny, by the sounds of it, different in a good way.
Yeah, I've heard really good things about him. I think what says a lot about him is that he was so dedicated to the women's game and improving women's football in a time where the financial gain was very small. That tells you his passion for it, and actually probably he's one of the people who'd be remembered for doing that, because obviously there's a lot of people who worked in women's football probably for free back then as well. So he will be remembered for that, and it's nice to hear the compliments coming in, because it's no age at all, is it? 47. I mean, he's only a year younger than myself. So.
That's all. How would you sum him up? I mean, you knew him, Kathryn. How would you sum him up?
A larger-than-life character, lovable, fiercely passionate, dedicated to football, and just one of the nicest guys around.
Kathryn Batte, Telegraph women's football reporter. Kathryn, thanks as always for joining us. And following that sad news over the weekend regarding Matt Beard, Shabana Hearn will bring you the Women's Football Show, where they'll bring you a tribute, a bunch of tributes actually, to one of the greats of the women's game, Matt Beard. Of that, there is no doubt. So that's talkSPORT's Women's Football Show, live on talkSPORT 2 at 10 o'clock tonight, or as a podcast, wherever you get your podcasts from.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.